This week on Pivot with Purpose.
For me, it still baffles my mind why people still struggle. You consume TikTok, you consume Instagram, you're on YouTube, and you still haven't done the things. And that's where
But you know what Drake is doing, what Sexy Red has got going on?
I don't know. I honestly don't.
You know what Sexy Red is?
I don't.
Ski.
I don't.
Okay, I don't know the words either. I just know ski part. My pink, my booty hole brown. No? Yeah,
No.
That they don't play that at the church.
They don't.
I went Sunday.
They don't play that at my church.
They don't play
Not
that
my
at
church, at least not mine.
They play it in the Church of Drake.
The blood of Jesus. That is what we talking about.
She said she got different.
We're
kind
not
of
talking about booty holes. We're talking about the blood of Jesus.
She talking about blood too, but it's different. That girl is special. But you know what? There's a lane for everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Pivot with Purpose. It's me. I'm Bike, Carla Ramirez, your host. Now, I have been creating content here at Hi Hello Labs with a really special guest that I'm bringing over to you. Oh, she's here. I'm bringing her like she's next to me. But I'm exhausted. Listen, being a model, if you are a model and you are in front of cameras, baby, you deserve a shot. You deserve a joint. You're going to heaven early. If your pictures are good, if they're not, well, you might stay on Earth. I'm just kidding. It's really hard work. But we did it. Behind the scenes of business is ghetto. It really is. I promise y'all. We're giving you some content, but we're going to talk about all of it today. Plus, I want to talk about this like hustle culture, burning out, and then your health. So I really want to take our health really seriously, especially because, I'm like inching up and my birthday's coming up. I'm about to turn 37. I'm getting old. But I have a young lady that came all the way from Drake's native land, the six. So you got a 6 in your number?
Yeah.
She came from the 6. We got Sofia Aguilar.
Aquí estoy.
Listen, we might do this in Spanish. Okay, buenos días, ¿cómo están? Vamos a not do that. No, but seriously, thank you for being on the pod.
Thank you for having me.
Sophia got here from Canada yesterday. You heard that right. She is Canadian, lives in Canada. And a little bit of a backstory. A few months ago, Sophia had reached out to me for podcasting and strategy. And I think I was in New York when you first called me and I couldn't log into my laptop. The whole thing was a hot mess. I'm like, listen, girl, let me get back home and we can do this again. So we did. And she ended up launching her pod and you're doing great, by the way. And it's no easy feat to produce a podcast. But the beauty about it was that I saw her. Anytime that I coach someone or I do a strategy call with someone or I launch for somebody, I watch their work and I'm watching what they're doing. A little stalkerish, but it's just more like I want to see what you're doing and who you are after, because it's cute to be on this call with me, right? And I'm like, you need to do A, B, C, D. And then most of the time, people don't really implement it because it's a lot of work. And you're like, well, life happens. And that's why there's only like 1% of podcasters that really get to the top. So she ends up launching, and as I'm watching her content, I'm like, oh, this is great. She does something else, and she can provide, value to me. So I brought you in, but I did see online, Real Talk Kim, I think she's a pastor, like Pastor Kim. She had posted something that said, your feet are about to be planted in rooms no one thought you were qualified for. And when I see tweets like that, it's, we see that kind of stuff all the time. And it happens to me, and not in a million years that I think that me doing a call with you would be like you coming here. So thank you for coming to Ghetto Orlando to hang out with me.
Here. I love it here. I'm about to move.
You say that to every city you go to.
No, yeah, I do.
But I don't think, do you really want to move to the U.S. from Canada?
You know what? I think I want to come for like a few months and then enjoy it and chill. Yeah. But I don't know if I could move fully. Like forever, I don't know yet.
Why? Is it because it's not familiar?
I think it's because it's not familiar. I've lived in Canada my 20 years. So.
Yeah, and we have terrible healthcare, so don't come over here. But we're gonna talk about what that healthcare looks like, because I think we talk about all the time, I'm leaving the United States. Well, at least for us Americans, we're like, we're leaving. Healthcare sucks, blah, blah, blah. And it's like,
the grass isn't greener on the other side.
What is it really like over there? But before we get there, I want you to kind of tell us, because you are technically 11 years younger than I am. I am disgusted with myself getting old and how all these young Gen Zers coming into my life. But at the same time, I learn a lot from y'all, because there are things that are changing and evolving. And if I don't stay like hip with the times, then I'm just going to get old and be like somebody's grandma. So how did you even get here to become a
Mhm.
social media like content capture person thing?
Mhm.
What is it? Give me the wording
Yeah.
for what you do.
Yeah, so thank you for having me.
Of
Honestly, I think
course.
even when you said that about I got shivers because we are like our names are in rooms that we haven't even stepped into, like people that we've
Mhm.
never even spoken to. And one of my best friends actually sent me your page and said, because I've been wanting to start a podcast and starting new things freak me out, but I love the challenge.
Mhm.
So when I was like, yeah, I want to do a podcast. First of all, I love to talk. I love to hear myself talk. And I
Me
was like, I think I
too.
should just start a podcast. Maybe I just need a place to like vent, you know?
Right.
Nobody wants to listen to me. So I did it. And you're right. People don't follow through. Even in my industry, I noticed that people like the idea of starting something, but they can't follow through with it.
Right.
So when I was looking for somebody, I wanted to look for somebody that was consistent. I wanted to look for somebody who had receipts to back things up and who
Ooh,
weren't
y'all
just
heard that?
like, yeah, and
Receipts.
receipts and people that weren't just telling people how to do it but like actually being able to implement it. So when I
Mhm.
came across your page, I was like, you know what, if I'm going to invest in something, I better follow through. And I told you, I was like, listen, I've already filmed a bunch of stuff. I didn't even know, all I needed to do was I think somebody to like light the fire under my butt and give me the possibility. And I told you, I'm like, it's so hard for me to find somebody that I can look to as a possibility. You know, like I think it's hard as business owners, as a young woman rising up. It's easy to look up to these to celebrities and be like, "Wow,
Right.
look at where they are." But it was so I guess like relieving for me to look up at you and say, "Okay, another Latina. I'm not the only one."
Right.
And I think that for me, that's why I invested and why I was like, "Yeah, I'm going all in because that's all I know how to do. I only know how to go all in. I could quit. I could try it out. It could not be for me. Podcasting is so hard. I still haven't even fully launched all my episodes that I filmed,
Right.
but I'm really, really excited with the turnout of it. So anyways, to answer your question, just a little backtrack. I'm a social media strategist and content creator. So I'm pivoting into more of the holistic marketing space because when I started, I've had a dance company. I started my business teaching salsa,
Right.
bachata.
Oh my gosh. Can you teach me in 20 minutes how to dance?
Maybe,
Tonight. I have two
maybe
left feet.
tonight.
I don't know how to dance.
Okay, I got you.
Okay.
We'll bring it back. We will bring it back to the old days when I was teaching, and it was so much fun. I loved it. It was basically like bringing everything from the ground up. My dad helped me open up my space.
Mhm. That's so
That
dope.
yeah, he like we built it all from
But
scratch
wait, they have like people
together.
that dance salsa in Canada?
Yeah, girl.
Okay.
People, you know,
I don't know.
it's a
I just think of
worldwide talent.
I think of Drake when I think of Canada. Just a bunch of like
So what, you
mixed
think Drake
people.
doesn't dance salsa or bachata? He has a
No,
song
I don't think he
with
dances it. There's no way he dances salsa.
Quiero ser novio con esta, na, na, na. Perdí
Oh,
tu amor.
wait.
Romeo Santos. He has a song with Romeo
Oh, yeah, I
Santos.
don't know that.
Promise.
So I do want to talk about the whole Latina thing in a
Okay,
second.
okay. Not me just singing Drake's song.
You did great. You did great.
I butchered it, but yeah, so I was teaching salsa, bachata, and I had my dance company. And,
Mhm.
you know, I was able to organically grow my following and grow my presence online to the point where people would see whatever I was doing and would pull up. Like they would just
Mhm.
pull up to my dance classes. Then I obviously had to pivot online. And even when I pivoted online, people still wanted to learn. I was teaching little kids how to dance, like just doing like fun movement
Aw.
sessions. And then from there, I started doing digital marketing. So I was in an MLM because to me, I was just like, listen, I need to get into something. I want to make money. I'm really good connecting with women, but
Mhm.
once I left MLM, it was just the disconnect of like, I want to teach people how to promote themselves and their business, not sell somebody else's product.
Right.
And that's when I started doing what I'm doing now. I launched my official offer. I ran with it for 1 full year and said, I'm going to teach people how to create 30 days worth of content in 1 day. Because as a business owner, it's so easy to put other people or to sell somebody else's thing.
So much
But when
easier.
it comes to selling yours, you're automatically you're like, I don't know how to
Every
do it.
time.
I don't know how to do it. And that was to me, I'm like, you are the face of your brand. You're the face of your product. And people aren't going to buy into what you do. They're going to buy into who you are. So you could decide to
Mhm.
sell water tomorrow and people are
Right.
still going to buy from Carla. I mean, I would. So,
I'll
so,
quench your thirst.
so, so that to me was like, I need people to understand the importance of this. So again, I ran with it for 1 full year. I realized that you know, the content creator buzzword started popping it around 2021, 2022. I'm not trying to say I invented it, but I'm trying to say I'm the best at what I do. There's a lot of people that, you know, podcast and do
Right.
content creation, but I really have yet to find somebody who does what I do. at an exceptional level. At least in my city. I don't know about,
Yeah,
surrounding
I think
areas.
some of those things is like when we were talking about it, we just don't know everybody that's out there. Sometimes I'll run
Exactly.
into a page and I'm like, wow,
Wow,
they're
you do
doing really good. And
this?
they have their receipts and they've been doing it.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, I've never heard of you.
Yeah.
But again, there's 8 billion
People
people
in the
on this
world,
earth. So
yeah.
I know that they might not be in our circle, but you're taking the fact that in your immediate circle of
Yeah.
people that you're looking in your social media realm, there's no one else doing it. And I want you to continue telling me like kind of like how you got here. But what I want to focus in the fact that a lot of my listeners are probably in their mid 30s were all right, we're a little seasoned. But a lot of us are starting new projects and feeling like, man, this job isn't really what I want to
Mhm.
do, or I'm not loving or passionate about this. And I want to really focus on the younger generation, which is you, and how fearless you are. There's like two different, you're Gen X, right?
I don't know. I'm
You're
1998.
you're
So I think I'm
probably
like borderline Gen X, Gen Z or
mm,
millennial. No, not
no, I mean not
millennial.
Gen X. I'm sorry, Gen Z. You're
Yeah,
definitely not Gen X.
yeah,
You're
Gen
Gen
X is like
Z.
2000 up, right? Or no,
No,
Gen
that
X
it's
is
older
like,
than me. Gen X is
oh,
after
okay, okay,
me.
okay.
I mean, older than me.
So then
Then
I'm
millennials and Gen Z.
okay, I'm a Gen
So
Z.
I think you're Gen Z. There's two kinds of Gen Zers.
Mhm.
There's the ones that it's like, well, until my passion comes around, they don't really want to work. Their mental health, they just need time to be home and woo-saw. And that is one Gen Z. And then there's another Gen Z that's like, I'm just going to figure it out and I'm going to go for it. And when I look at your content online, bro, y'all Gen Zers, including Dee, who's here, and she's about your age, where you're 25? 27? Okay, I think you're also Gen Z, right? Okay, so 97, 98, at least you guys are 1900s. But you're still extremely young and you walk around with your tripods, bro. Like they take their tripods and then they just start busting out moves in the middle of the street and I'm like, what's wrong with her? She's
Mhm.
having a whole seizure. And then I see her content afterwards and I'm like, it's so cute. It's so
Mhm.
relatable. We're watching it and you're giving us an experience. And I think that's what us millennials and some like early Gen Xers or even Gen Xers that are trying to build our content online just feel kind of like we don't belong or we can't do that or we're embarrassed. But why are we so embarrassed when you guys are like, you know what? I'm doing what I need to do. This is the world we live in now. And the world we live in is online and social media. So you go from dancing to then like saying, I'm going to start creating social media content for myself. And then now you're basically having people saying, hey, can you do what you do for you for me?
I think the opportunities are everywhere. And nobody cares until you're finally up there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think people's fear is that nobody's seeing you. And I think I think why people are scared is because they think that everyone's watching their every move.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's watching you because nobody cares because everyone's focused on what they got what they're doing
Right.
and
Somebody's getting cheated on right now.
I need to focus on what I got to do. Do your thing. But me, I'm like this focusing on my own thing. So why would I have the time and spending my time thinking about what other people are thinking about me and think about what I'm doing is why am I focused on that when I can invest that energy into actually creating something and chasing those opportunities? And when I saw the gap, I said, I need to bridge this gap because people like Gen X's or even millennials, they're not using their tools to their advantage. And they're saying, well, you know what? Yes, I'm not passionate about this. Maybe it's just too hard, so I won't figure it out, or
Right.
somebody else can do it for me. I took the time to learn, ask the right questions, and get in rooms. Yes, some of them were expensive rooms. Some of them, it was a conversation and an introduction,
Right.
but you have to be willing to put yourself out there in order to receive. And if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have met you. I
Right.
wouldn't have been on TV. I wouldn't have been, flying across the world, creating content for other people. And
Right.
that I think is a difficult thing to teach people how to have grit, to teach people how to be like, even if it fails, even if you're doing it
And you
for a
will
full month, and
fail.
you are always going to fail. I've failed multiple times. I've had to do refunds. I've had to go through clients that didn't like me. I've had to go through clients that I didn't like.
Right.
I took on more clients than I could handle and got super sick and still learned and said, okay, it's from these mistakes
Right.
and these opportunities that I've learned. So but I think that, again, people that are in transition or in pivot of their careers and their industry, the reason why they're afraid to try again is because they feel like now it's too late. Like there's not
Yes.
enough time. There is so much time. Even when you say I'm 26, I'm like, I feel like I'm 40. And I'm like, when does the time stop ticking? Like, does it stop? Because
No.
I feel like I have so much time, and that is such a blessing. I think that we look at time as like scarcity, like there isn't
Right.
enough of it. But it's like if you knew all the opportunities that were out there, you could get up every day and try something new, even if you wanted
Do you
to.
know how many times, like, and I use my weight because this is the one part that I really struggle with in the past couple of years. I mean, I
Mm,
would say since having the baby, and it's getting back in shape, right?
mm-hmm.
And if I would have just started walking a year ago every day and stuck to it, today I would have been somewhere else. Now I have to start over. You just need to start.
Yeah.
And you at 26, you're like, oh, I feel like I'm 40. Trust me, you don't. Um, you don't. I seen you
My
put your legs up. I seen you moving around. You stayed out. You know, you can go out to a bar and be out a little late and then come in and still wake up early in the morning. We can't do that. We really can't. We wake up the next day like a truck hit us. And I'm not even like in my 50s, but I'm about to be 37 years old and I still have so much time. I look at someone like Oprah that's
mm-hmm.
still going. I look at someone like Tyler Perry, working closely with Tiffany D. Cross. She's 45, I believe, 44, 45. And I'm like, wow, she has 8 years on me. Looks amazing. It's still working. Just launched her podcast. We just launched it, right? And she's in her 40s, right?
Mm-hmm.
She did journalism. She got fired from MSNBC. I got fired from radio at 36, right? Almost 2 years in. So all of these things are happening and we feel like, "Oh, we can't start over, and why not?" And I feel like we can learn from you guys in the way that it's like, hey, just get up and start again. Like stop being so, you said something really important. Stop being so into yourself and thinking we really care. We really don't care. You think you're posting, oh my God, I'm posting 5 times a week and it's just too much.
Everyone's gonna be commenting on what I'm doing. Nobody
No,
cares.
they're not. But what they are going to be talking about is a year from then when you continue to post and you find your target audience, whether it's that you're selling t-shirts,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's that you're creating a lip gloss, whether it's like Didi said, I want to start a workout line of clothes, whether it's a podcast, you need to freaking promote it. You need to promote it and you need to put it out there because people are in their own lives. They have their jobs, they're getting fired, they're getting married, they're getting divorced, they're having kids. And it's like in the midst of their chaos, they're finding you, but you have to continue to keep pushing because Instagram is a tool and it's not necessarily where we live. And that
Mm-hmm.
algorithm changes, honey.
Yeah.
And it's like sometimes I see you, sometimes I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's like, oh my God, I remember that girl that posted about these t-shirts that she makes all the time. Let
Mm-hmm.
me look her up. And I want to be able to look up your page because you used to always post all the time. And I remember your name. And I'm like, oh, she's still doing it. Let me reach out to them to work for
Mm-hmm.
me. Like even with like maybe like sweets by Brittany. Shout out to her. I always talk about her sweets. Whenever there's a party, which is not often, I'm like, let me go order my cupcakes from her, whatever it may be. And she's still posting and still doing
Mm.
parties, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, oh, look, I can still reach out to her,
Yeah.
but I maybe reach out to her 3 times a year,
Yeah.
you know? So I love the fact that you're able to teach us that. Now you're full blown into content creation now and traveling to different people.
Yeah. Yes, and I'm in a pivot. The reason why is because there's no legacy in social media because it's always changing. That means I mean, I love it. I love what I do. This is where I am, but I think that there's a higher level of impact. For me, it's about my faith, it's about generations. And now it's like, well, where does the empowerment come? Because right now it's only behind a screen. How do we get in front of the people? So I'm really
Eek,
yeah,
I don't
it's
want that.
I do. I love that. Me like I'm an in-person girl. I love the digital and the virtual stuff and don't get me wrong, it's great, but I do feel like people are craving more of that in-person connection. And also, there's still a gap. There's still like people don't know how to hold a phone. People still don't know about Instagram. They still don't know about TikTok. And it's like, yes, we could learn that online, but I'm a huge like I'm looking for ways to like be the go-to person in education because
Yes.
here's the thing, people are going to school for marketing and business because they think it's like, wow, I'm going to go to school and learn how to start a business, or I'm going to have a business degree and then do
Yeah.
so much with it. And then you don't know how to even open up your QuickBooks, open up an email, create a strategy, even have a conversation, understand customer service. So that's
There's
where,
nothing,
yeah.
you just mentioned QuickBook. If you're listening to this, it's nothing that pisses me off more
Hmm.
than receiving a PDF invoice.
Yeah.
I feel like that is so unprofessional. And correct me if I'm wrong with your young self in business. but I've been in business for a very long time. If I'm a business, even if it's like a sole entrepreneur,
There's tools. Figure it out.
you need to send Zelle, Cash App, and Venmo is not the way you do it as a business owner. You can open up a Stripe, a QuickBooks, a Shop, anything for me to pay you where I can click pay now and I can choose how to pay you in an actual payment method.
Well, you don't go to Apple or Best Buy or Sephora and they say, "Okay, can you transfer me or can you Zelle me or Cash App me?" No, they're so and that's the thing is people want to have a business, but they want to operate small-minded, which is like and you have to do the work. I mean, you have to pay the Stripe fees, you have to do all that, but when you're in business school or a marketing school, you don't learn on this and then you step out into this world and you're like, "Oh, I can't run a business like this.
Right.
I don't really know."
No, people they keep trying and I hate it. I really hate it because in podcasting, I don't teach business, but I do.
Yeah.
I run podcasts from day 0 like a business. I don't care how many followers you have. You need to have, a why, a purpose, and how to run that business. And I appreciated that about you because you're like, you know what? Here's my contract. Here's how to pay. And I'm like, all right, little girl, I see you. And that just makes me excited to invest into you.
It's given real business.
It is. And you might have completely screwed up my work, but still you had, I knew you wouldn't because you took certain steps to learn certain business tips or procedures to be legit, and that doesn't come overnight. You really have to study that and talk to someone. You can just ask someone and say, hey, so I'm trying to get a payment processing system. Which one do you use? I would be quick to be like, girl, I got Stripe. Go ahead and use that. Or I have my Squarespace that you can pay on.
There's so much. There's Stand Store now. Like that's the thing is there's so many resources out there. For me, it still baffles my mind why people still struggle because you consume TikTok, you consume Instagram, you're on YouTube, and you still haven't done the things. And that's where.
But you know what Drake is doing? What Sexy Red has got going on?
I don't know. I honestly don't.
You know what Sexy Red is?
I don't.
Ski.
I don't.
It just in ski.
I don't.
Okay, I don't know the words either. I just know ski part. My pussy pink. My booty hole brown. No? Yeah.
No.
That they don't play that at the church.
They don't.
Went Sunday.
They don't play that at my church.
They don't play
not
that
my church. At least not mine.
They play it in the Church of Drake.
The blood of Jesus. That is what we talking about.
She said she got different.
We're not talking about booty holes. We're talking about the blood of Jesus.
She talking about blood too, but it's different. That girl is special. But you know what? There's a lane for everybody. All I'm saying is they are doing what they need to be doing. I feel like sometimes Gen Z or even millennials look at somebody like Sexy Red and say, oh my goodness, but she's popping right now and she's so big and she's making money. She is like 0.01%, and then you see a lot of YouTubers making money. You think they're making money and they're not. You see social media influencers are like, oh my God, I can just make money off of making TikToks. Such a small percentage of who's actually making a living off of it. But I do want to pivot a little bit into, no pun intended, pivot into the fact that you're Colombian, born in Colombia.
Sí.
And then you're,
sí. Just so people know, sí.
Sí, I speak Spanish, sí. And we were talking yesterday while we were eating dinner, and we realized we fell into the space of, as Latinas, not being Latina enough for the Latinas, not being Black enough for the Black community at times, definitely not being white enough for the whites. So where do we fall in and how do we find other Latinas that feel the exact same way? And I feel like that's going to be the niche that I want to go into, or the women that I also want to talk to, because there's so many times when I start speaking Spanish, people will be like, oh my God, you speak Spanish? Like, I thought you were Black. I thought you were African American. And I'm like, no, or they thought I was mixed, like Black and Hispanic. And I'm like, no, I am actually ethnicity, Hispanic, race, Black. That's what I check on my stuff. But I was born in Puerto Rico, raised here. So tell me a little bit about in Canada, what that looks like, because we talked about, like, I'm not white passing in any way, shape, or form. I saw you and I didn't realize you were Hispanic. I thought you were Middle Eastern. Mm-hmm. So what does that look like for you growing up in Canada? And it's like finding your place.
Yeah. You know what? I feel like I still haven't found my place. I think it's so hard to look different, but I never realized that I was different. Mm. Like I it may sound so stupid, but I felt like I mean, we all look alike. Like, what do you mean? When somebody told me I was a woman of color, I was like, "What color? What color? Like, aren't we the same color?" And it sounds ignorant, but me coming to Canada, it was I guess I mean, I came when I was 6, so I was pretty young,
Mhm.
and all I remember and I was telling my dad this, is all I remember is me speaking a language, and then nobody was able to understand me, and that stuck with me. I was like, "Okay, so don't speak your language." So there
Mm.
is something different about me, but I don't see it because, we're all speaking English or we're all speaking Spanish, and so I am still trying to find my place. I think I don't know if this is a Latina thing or Hispanic thing or Colombian thing, but when the narrative is that we're crazy and that everyone's like out to get you, you don't want to tap into that space. So I've never tapped into working with Hispanic women or Latin American women. And I think, we can
Mhm.
both relate. And I don't know if there was like it's a subconscious thing of me saying like, oh, we're catty, or everyone's like out to get each other, or it's a very what do you call that? Like
Clicky?
cliquey community that like, everybody's just doing their own thing. And so I just never really felt like I had somewhere to
Or, like,
go. And
accepted?
so I mean, and I don't know if if I close myself off. That's actually something I want to unpack in therapy, is like, am I closed off and am I closing myself off? Because you're right, like when you look at me, I do get Middle Eastern, I get Arabic, I get Turkish, I get
Ooh,
everything.
Turkish, for
And
sure.
then when I say, "Yeah, I'm Colombian," then people throw the race stuff. And that really frustrates me because I'm never going to be like, "Oh, like, oh, you're white, so you must do this, or you're Colombian, you must Pablo Escobar must be your dad, or you must be like, you know, um traveling bricks and stuff here and there." And like I don't like that. And I think that's kind of sometimes what threw me off, being like I'm Colombian, so I would start saying like I'm Canadian. And my dad checked me and he was like, "You are very much Colombian. Like you have a Colombian passport. We are Colombian." And even teaching salsa and bachata, I almost felt like a fraud because I was like, I don't actually know my culture. I feel like I've pushed away so far from it that now I'm 26. I see, and even when I was 23, I was like, I want to go back home and enjoy the positive side of my culture and the positive
What's
side of my
the
community.
Canadian culture? Because for me, I got
Mm,
here young, and I
yeah.
sided very quickly with the African American culture. So I
Mm-hmm.
saw myself as a Black girl,
Mm-hmm.
from here, and I disassociated with with the Puerto Rican and Hispanic culture until about 24,
Oh
25, when I
wow.
went and fell in love with the island. And I'm like, this is dope.
Yeah.
I still can't stand you're like, acho papi, que lo que pasa, que lo. That's not me. That's not. And I'd be like, but that's just like any old like hood rat from any country that, they just be speaking very fluent hood rats. And we
Yeah.
have those in Puerto Rico as well. But I also love it in a sense now when I watch it, I'm like, man, like
That's
that,
my
like
people.
that's my people, like little
Yeah.
ratchet asses. Yes,
Yeah.
I know that's right. I'm shout out the whole club. I see y'all killing
Yeah.
people, showing it in the news. They just, you know what I mean? That's still
Yeah.
our culture and my island. But I have found myself that after I started accepting that a little bit more, I started attracting
Yep.
the Hispanics that really get it, especially the ones that have been here for a long time. I was here since I was 8. You were
Mhm.
6. So I worked with like Erica Cruz from Chingona Revolution. I worked with oh my God, Ida. She did Work Your Magic. And I've worked with a lot of Hispanic women that were pretty much raised here, but are more in tune with
Mhm.
their Hispanic side. And at times I'd be like, wow, you have a lot of Latina followers or a lot of Latina friends.
Like,
And
how do
then I
you
looked
do?
around myself and my circle. I'm like, oh, actually, so do I. I have
Yeah.
a ton of mixed friends,
Yeah.
some Latinas, and a lot of Black friends at the same time.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I can now be a little bit more diverse. But it took me to be almost 40 to kind of blend
Mhm.
both things together.
Yeah. I think Canada is known as a melting pot. I don't know if you've ever heard that term, but they say like Canada is a huge melting pot.
I'm like, here.
Yeah, and now that I'm thinking, like now that you said that, I'm like 3 of my best friends are Hispanic. One's Colombian, but it's like I don't know. I feel like we're trying to be one or the other. Like it's either like you said, like I want to be like in the African American crew and like with the people, or we want to be with the white girls. But what about our community? And that's I felt that disconnect too. Even when I speak Spanish on social media, Spanish people, women come to me and we're like, "You need to do a course in Spanish. You need to talk in Spanish. You need to build a Spanish community." And I'm like, I don't know. I
I
don't
think
know
it
what it
just comes
is.
organically. I've
Yeah.
never sat out to be like, I'm looking for all the Latinas. I'm
Yeah.
looking for all the Black girls. No, I'm just like, I say it as women of color. So
Yeah.
I've dealt with Middle Eastern. I've
Yeah.
worked with Black, with Hispanic, with Asian. Yeah, I know how I feel about the whites. But after a conversation in Atlanta recently, I feel like I'm gonna have to open up a little bit. Not
And you
yet.
know what? And this is where I'm like, people don't,
I'm
I don't
itching.
know. I'm no longer like looking at color. Like, I don't
Shit,
know.
I see color. Bright. It's there.
But, and that's the thing is, I'm like, at the end of the day, bad character is everywhere.
Absolutely.
And I've had clients who I'm like, I am never working with these people. And they have been the kindest, most genuine, understanding. I'm like, I'm never working with a Latina. And here we are. You know what I mean?
Hola.
It's not about, and I think this is where I try to like push myself out of colorism or whatever. Like it's there, it exists, but to me I think that I was just in this ignorant place of like, no, I'm not discriminating against, everyone accepts me, and the reality is I wasn't, and we're not. But I like to think in my head that in this pretty little
We
world
have to
that
be
we don't.
different.
Yeah.
So I know that I struggled for years in the past with racial discrimination, and it's
Mm-hmm.
happened to me so much in the
Yeah.
past couple years, but I feel like I've shifted in the last probably 2-3 years my mindset and the way that I approach it, right? So I
Yeah.
do be talking about whites sometimes, but honestly recently I have dealt with more white people, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh, okay, there are allies, there are people that are great, and it is a character thing,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't ignore
You can't.
sometimes
Mm-hmm.
that when we have our backs, on a hard place, will they turn on me? That's always a thought in my head.
Wow.
And I can't help that because here in this country, we see it happen. It's
Yeah.
happened to me. But at the same time, I can't let that taint me to be like, fuck all white folks.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm working on now. But I also can't say, oh, all Hispanic women are great, because there are some that it's just like you said, it's their character. So it's just working on me
Mm-hmm.
and not allowing someone else being a shitty person,
Yeah.
essentially, taint me. You
Yeah.
being shitty is not going to make me be a shitty person.
Yeah.
I can't allow that. Just because you did me dirty, I'm not going to go now and trash you online and talk about you. I'm just going to pick up and move on. And it took a long time for me to get here, because really that Facebook post, baby, was coming.
It was
I
for the
was.
growth.
It's such big growth. But
Yeah.
at 26, I wasn't doing that. I was
Yeah.
gonna fight you and talk about you.
Yeah. I mean, I still talk about them. I just may not put my hands on you.
You so young.
I bring you to Jesus. I go and say it in prayer, and I'm still gonna talk about you. But the reality is, it's
Working on it.
hard. It's hard in business. I mean, it's hard enough to make friends in business because you're a business owner, but then you also have friends, and then it's also like, but your friends become clients, but then it's also like you're always too busy for your friends. So all in all, it's already hard enough as it is, and then you add the business layer and the client layer to it, and then our background, and
I
I'm
don't
like,
allow myself to get too close to clients.
hmm,
So there's most
yeah,
clients, like, we're so cool, and I've stayed at their house and we've done stuff, but I
it's
have to
like,
keep like especially like ongoing clients,
yeah.
because I'm dealing with them on a week to week, almost daily basis, right?
Mhm.
And it's like in my business, at least for production, it's like I need to keep a clear line of like, this is a business
Yeah,
relationship. I need to they'll trust you, right? I need you to trust me.
absolutely.
I need to know some of your deepest secrets, especially for podcasting, because we're being very vulnerable.
Yes.
But I also need to know, and them to know, this is still when I'm heartbroken or going through a very tough time in my life, they're probably not the person I'm going to call.
Yeah.
I have my friends outside of business, or my therapist. Please go to your therapist, y'all.
I think that was the
Go
hardest
to your
thing for me
therapist.
when I first started is that um I was very lonely when I started my business. Like it was a very
Mm,
lonely time, and I was in a relationship, but I was always working. And I think part of me starting my business was because I wanted a sense of community that I couldn't really
mhm.
find. And so I wanted to create it through my clients, and then realizing like, oh, now I've made my clients like my friends, so there's no boundaries. And I
Yeah.
mean, it was my fault. Like, I have to say, like, I allowed it, or there was something in me that said, yeah, you know what? You can call me at 1 a.m. asking me about your edits.
No.
No. And now I understand that. And actually, all those clients, unfortunately, I'm no longer friends with or clients with because there was a boundary that I personally didn't have. And then once it came down to like, oh, hey, can you just film a little video for me? And then you don't want to break that relationship. So you're
Right.
right. That was a really hard thing for me to do at the beginning because I just wanted to have people around. And because running a business and entrepreneurship is
And you're
lonely.
human.
And
We want
we crave
friends.
connection. We want friends, especially that understand what we're going through, like client stuff or like, oh, you went through that. I went through that too. So we end up actually bonding. But there is a very fine line. Now I'm glad that, I mean, most of my clients are like 15 to 20 years older than me or also my age, but it's a very much like boundary driven relationship.
Right, and I think it can turn into something more,
Yeah.
absolutely, but keeping the friendship and business very separate.
Separate.
I think I've
Absolutely.
talked about, working with Mandy now for the very first time after 12 years of friendship, and there's a very strict boundary there, like
Mm-hmm.
work-wise, when
That's so
we're on
good.
set, like it's my production, we're working, this is your role, you're the best at your role, do your role. And podcasting is a little bit different because we're like sometimes we're working all hours, but we
Yeah.
have our set times. Hey,
Yeah.
I'm going to schedule this call ahead of time. Like we're gonna do A, B, C, and D. And you can do that, but you have to be very clear. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like just because we're friends doesn't mean now we're gonna be like you're gonna be like, hey, can you do something extra for me? No, business is business. I pay you for your business. If you want to hang out and drink and go eat, like that's cool too.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to set those boundaries.
Yeah.
There was something else I want to talk to you about because you're working and you're like you've been lonely and you're going nonstop. Recently you were posting about going through some health issues, and I want to talk about this with you today because I have a friend that literally when we were pulling up here is calling me and she's like, I'm burning out.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've just been crying all day. I already saw it coming. She's like, I'm burning out, and I burn out at this time and this time every year for the past 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm asking her, I'm like, so what's the plan? And she's like, there is no plan. What was going on with you on social media? You're like, oh, I'm sick and I still have to show up, and you're still showing up, but you have things going on.
Mm-hmm.
What happened?
It's so emotional for me. Like I don't want to cry.
I love to make people
But
cry. We can cry. I'll cry with you.
I don't know why I got emotional. I was fine. I'm a thug. I promise.
Don't worry about it. I know
I'm a
how to
little
bring tears.
gangster. So I mean, we're all going through it, but nobody's talking about it. Nobody's
Right.
addressing the elephant in the room that our mental health is so affected because of social media and comparison. Internally, as a woman, there's a lot of changes that we go through, especially when it comes to cortisol and your hormones, and you just feel like you're not functioning. And so I, oh my gosh, I don't know why I'm getting emotional.
And it's okay because we don't talk about it
Yeah,
enough.
is there a tissue?
Yeah,
Shit,
it's
I
okay.
was good. Oh my gosh, I got out of a relationship last year in May. And I think as women, we also need to understand that like sometimes we're the problem. And I was definitely the problem. I was so unhappy that I was making myself and my partner's life so miserable. And oh my God, why am I crying?
Aw.
So when I left that relationship, I was finally alone with myself and being like, yo, like you got serious issues. You were using not you like having this person in your life to kind of like suppress like your heart, your internal. So I realized that there was like getting out of that relationship was like for me to be like I got issues that I gotta fix, and if not, I'm gonna hurt the next person coming along as well. So I drank a lot. I ended up like traveling. That's when my traveling picked up. So I was traveling. I was barely sleeping. I was eating like one meal a day. I gained like 50 pounds. I'm down 14. So oh,
Hey, you've been
snatch.
on your
Okay, I've been in
workout.
my workout. But I went to go do a pap test. And for it's
Pap smear annual for women.
internal test, and it kept coming back abnormal. And so I'm traveling. I come back home. I do my test. My doctor calls me. Hey, you know what? You have an abnormal test. And I'm like, "Ugh, like what's going on? I'm gaining all this weight. There's this talk of PCOS. Then I get a letter from the Cancer Society. Like there's just so many things flooding me,
You're so young.
and I'm young. And I was like, oh my God, I'm turning 26. I mean, I'm 25. And usually people tell me like, or people are always telling me like, okay, you could do what you want from 20 to 24. But as soon as you turn 25, things are going to change. So in my head, I'm like, if I don't start taking myself seriously, something's going to happen. But I'm a very high functioning person. So I didn't want to face the fact that I could potentially be having internal issues. I was just like, I'm going to put my head down and go to work. So that's what I kept doing. I was like, I don't care. I'm working. I'm getting my clients. I'm getting my money. And that was my coping mechanism. Let's just get busier so we don't have to deal with everything that we have going on. And that actually pushed a lot of people away from me. I was not a good friend, but that's when I came to like more of a closer relationship with God, because I was like, listen, God, if you don't fix it, something's gonna happen here. So as of recent, I like shared with everybody what was going on because I couldn't show up. I couldn't show up the same, and it was affecting my business. It was affecting my way of like communicating with clients. It was very snappy, and I didn't understand that hormonally and internally there was something wrong with me because of the increased stress, the lack of eating, and just everything from and that's the thing is we think that these are just things that happen overnight. They're not. We've accumulated this for so long of having this like hustle and grind mode. So I just said like part of my 2024 goal was to be the healthiest version of myself. And if that meant not having to work with a lot of clients, I might have to financially pivot or I mean make more but do less work. Like there's so many things that I want to put in place because what I realize is life is too short for a business, for a client, for money, because at the end of the day, money can get us good health care.
Right.
But once our life is gone, like what are we doing? And we have a purpose on this earth. And that's when I think somebody very close in our community passed away and the impact that was felt. And we're just like, life is way too short to let things like this stress us. But it really, it's really difficult for me because nobody talks about the health stuff. And I don't want to feel incompetent. I don't want me saying I'm dealing with some health stuff. I'm falling asleep. I'm really exhausted. I have really bad cramps. Like I have really bad pains, or mentally I don't feel well. I don't want a client to look at me or somebody be like, "Oh, she's dealing with something. Like we can't hire her." So that's
Mhm.
why I never came up front about it because I didn't want anyone to feel sorry for me. I don't need you to feel sorry for me. I don't need you to be like, "Oh, poor girl. Like let's see how." No. I don't want that. I just want you to
Wow.
understand that I was going through something, but that doesn't make me any less than. But I think that's something that I'm working on because some days I really can't get it together. Like I can't get out of bed or I'm crying all day and I don't understand, but I think the biggest thing that we need to understand is that we just need to give ourselves some grace. And I'm so hard on myself. So for me to be like doing this, I'm going to go home and be like, why did I just cry on, a podcast? But I also need to give myself some grace. I've been on the road for 4 days.
Right.
Like this is me just sitting down
You
with
are
you.
so, like, as I'm listening to you talk, you're so, first of all, I'm so proud of you.
Ugh,
It is so hard to do, and vulnerability, sometimes like, we have this, like, really hard shield,
yeah.
and we feel like that's guarding us from things, and
Mhm.
honestly, we're such mush behind that
I'm a
shield,
mush.
but when you
See
take
this one?
off when you take off that shield
Mhm.
and this vulnerability comes out, it's you being even stronger than you were
Yeah.
before. Now, you being 26,
Mhm.
you're unmarried, you don't have any children,
Mhm.
you're living your best life. No, but I feel like you're doing so much and you have like these goals
Yeah.
and I don't know if this is you, but I see it a lot and I just saw actually it was a reel of a young lady that records here. What is her name? Beauty Marks. What's her name? Elizabeth. I saw a reel she put on. She's like, I thought I would be married by 25. I guess she just went through a breakup. Not really sure
Mhm.
what that was. But I remember, I don't know if you've put time limits on what you have going on. You're like, by the time I'm 30, that was a big thing for me. I want to be
Mhm.
married with the white picket fence and the kids and the business thriving. And it's like, girl, give yourself grace. Like you
Mhm.
said, and I know that you want to like get it together, right? I'm going to be at my best, at my healthiest.
Mhm.
All you have to do is slow down.
Yeah, and it's a process. I think that's what I really understood. I'm like, some days are better than others, and some days are not.
And that takes a lot because
Yeah.
I know women in their 40s and 50s that haven't gotten there yet. And another thing that I just noticed as you were talking is the introspect for you to say, I was the problem. You have issues. Bro, sometimes there's some women that be like, bro, I have toxic relationships, these friends suck, and these boyfriends
No.
suck, and I had this narcissist or whatever. But let's look inside.
Well, and that's honestly, I didn't want to publicly say this, but I was having this conversation with my girl to be like, what am I going to talk about on Carla's podcast? And I was like, I think there's a lot of podcasts talking about how men are the narcissists, but we don't talk about how women can be narcissists too. And that's
Absolutely.
why
And
I
toxic.
hope my ex, watches this and sees this as a apology because I definitely was a toxic one and I definitely felt like I was the manipulative one, but not out of like I want to be this, is that I had not that I had no other choice because I accept responsibility, but being like when you're like empty, it's very easy to have these behaviors to try to mold people into what you want them to be.
So there's a big difference. And because I studied narcissism for so long, not like
Mhm.
in school or anything, but literally I got fucked by a whole man with narcissistic personality disorder. You fall into this realm of I have been toxic too. But there are two very different things. Someone that's toxic and then someone that's narcissist. A high narcissistic traits, you don't have that looking inside and saying, let me take responsibility for that. So narcissism, let's just throw that out right now, right? We have just been toxic. And you can be toxic. That comes from our background, our trauma response, what we saw our parents do. And then we're just kind of mimicking what we already knew. And as women, sometimes we get told how to manipulate men to get what we want. If you're good looking, it's like, I'll take your money or do what I want or don't talk to any women, because it's in the Hispanic culture. That's why they say like Latinas are crazy. It's like, you don't talk to nobody else. You're with me. You love me only. I'm going to kill everybody else. But that also comes from the fact that a lot of Hispanic men, when we look back, are cheaters and have different families going on at the same time. So the women, we saw our grandma. I saw my grandma. Well, she told me the stories of getting my grandpa out of someone's house and having tea or coffee with the women and letting them know, leave my husband alone. He's coming home now. You know? So that's like, crazy. That's not okay. No. But also she was training me when I got married at 19, telling me you need to put polvo on before bed and do your hair and like light makeup because you have to have sex with your man every night. And I'm like, no, if I don't want to, I'm not going to. And that should be okay as well. So your toxicity is not necessarily like you were just this terrible person, but at least you took the time, the awareness to sit back and be like, you know what? I was wrong. I apologized to my ex. Y'all know I was talking to Obey for a little while and I apologized to him. I said, the way that I went about things was wrong. You might have been toxic. You might have cheated. We were both toxic. We did things to each other and it was not okay. And I'm able to grow through it. Someone with narcissism will never accept that there's something wrong with them. They will always look out and say, they're the problem. So let me go to another friend. Let me go to another man. Let me go to another business. They're constantly reinventing themselves somewhere else instead of sitting back and saying, there's something I'm not dealing with. Yeah. There's something from my childhood. That inner child, baby, we have to sit with them and say, hey, babes, what happened to you? It's okay. Let me hold you. Let me hug you. Yeah. And I think that's why my parenting for both my kids is so different. With my daughter, toxic, trauma, like I didn't know what I was doing. With my son now, it's like he throws this crazy tantrum and it's like, sometimes I want to pick him up and throw him out of a window, but most of the time I just hold him. Yeah. And I'm like, let me just hold you because as you get older, I don't want you to think that when you're getting upset or your emotions are high, we just scream at you because that's what happened to me. Yeah. Just get yelled at and get hit. And I don't know if that was your upbringing.
I don't know. Honestly, I can't remember a lot of my upbringing. That's something I've actually, and that's something I'm like, again, in therapy of being like, because a lot of people ask me, one day I want to write a book. And I'm like, in order to write a book, I need to remember what the heck happened in my life. Right. So I've been asking my parents like, hey, like, I just want to know. And I think this is a reason why I'm going to therapy to be like, hey, I don't really know what has happened. And I suppressed a lot of things. So yeah, I don't know. There are some things that obviously like that happened with our parents and coming from Colombia, being here. So that's where I know some of my hustle culture comes from. That hustle is that I've always seen my parents, my dad especially, hustle and just figure it out. So that's why I've adopted that. Like no ifs, ands, or buts. If you're sitting down, you're being lazy, get up, go do your thing. Now my dad has changed a lot where he's like, relax, like sleep, right, give it a second, chill. And that actually has helped me so much be like, hey, my dad's holding grace for me. I need to kind of chill, hold grace for myself, have space, and also surrender to God. Like there's a lot of things that we do and we try to like manipulate God's plans for us. And it's like, I really feel God some days being like, girl, if you knew that I've already worked it out all for your good, like I've already like worked it all out for you. You are blessed and highly favored. And my best friend and I say, God's, God don't play about me. We always say that. God don't play about me. So if he doesn't play about me, then why am I so worried? Why do I try to control things and put them in my own strength? And one of my favorite verses is come to me all those who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. And I think about that every single time I'm like stressed out and anxious, that I'm like, okay, God, give me rest. Please. Because it's usually in the times where we're exhausted and burnt out that we're really not even relying on God's strength. We're relying on our own strength. So that's where I'm in this season of being like, okay, God, like I only want what you want from me, because if it's only coming from me, this is going to be hard and it's not going to be sustainable and I can't figure it out.
And you have to believe in something. I recently did an episode, which won't come out yet, for Across Generations. And we have 3 different generations, very distinct topics. And for this specific one, the 3 sides was a Gen Z, no, it was second millennial, Jesus Christ follower, so Christian, on the other opposite side, we had a senior atheist.
Oh,
She
wow.
grew up in the church, and 12 years ago, she decided she would become a non-believer. So she
Mm.
doesn't believe now in anything. And then we had someone in the middle who grew up in the church, had grandma telling her, she's like, I believe in a higher power. I think there's a God there. I do pray,
Mhm.
but I'm not really sure where to swing, right? It's
Yeah.
like, I'm definitely not atheist, but I don't know if I want to completely surrender to God. And our younger person was like, listen, I decided to create relationship. And I think that when people hear you talk right now, maybe if you're like on the fence and you're not a believer, you're like, here
Here
go
we
another
go.
one talking about God. But it's like, hey, when you create that relationship yourself with God and with Jesus Christ, it's like things change, man. Mountains move. Things you would never imagine happen. And I was just in church last weekend. We were talking about, he says, think about the fact that you might be in a job that you don't love. You are hustling or you're starting this business and you haven't been evicted. That light bill gets paid. You and your kids are eating. That car payment gets paid. Even if it's a couple weeks late, it gets paid. You have gas in that car. You know, your things are getting paid. And sometimes you look back and you're like, how did that happen? There is someone higher out there, you know? When you go to church, it's not the church you're praising. Like, I love Journey Church, and I talk about it here all the time. But there's nothing in me that wants a relationship with Pastor JJ or his wife.
Mhm.
I don't want to go to dinner with them. I don't want to know their deepest, darkest secrets other than the ones that he tells us on the podium. He is, the vessel
Yeah.
to give me the word in a way that I can digest it.
Mhm.
But you need to understand that your insides, whether it's from our physical body, our health, our mental health, we have to surrender it and say, let me have this relationship with him and don't test God. He's not here for us to test him.
Mhm.
You have to believe in something. So if you're believing like we believe, it's more like, hey, Lord, whenever you're ready, on
Yeah.
your time.
And I think the mere fact that we wake up every morning with breath in our lungs is your only, if it's your
Right.
only miracle, it's a miracle.
Right.
Like the fact that people don't get to wake up.
They just don't wake
They
up.
just
And
don't
we
wake
don't even
up.
know
And we
why.
don't
The
even know
heart just
why.
stopped out of
So
nowhere.
yeah, the fact that you're awake is a miracle, and you can't tell me that it's not a miracle. And I think it when I talk about God, it's a sensitive topic, especially on my social media as well, because there's a lot of people who are discovering or looking to build a relationship with God,
Mhm.
but they've been hurt by people. And my
By the
approach is my
church.
my my approach to them is, you've been hurt by people, and that's who we are. Is we are people on this earth with traumas, with situations, and just because I believe in God doesn't make God the bad person. I'm a human,
Mhm.
and you're a human too, and we
We
can
have
hurt people.
faults.
When even like on Resurrection Sunday, I heard this and I'm like, Jesus was a perfect man, like the only perfect without sin, who
Right.
died for us on the cross. Like even just those things that I'm like, for us, like we are sinners,
Right.
but it's like just those things that I'm like, if that's too much for you to comprehend, just understand that you're loved and that you don't have to do anything to earn that love. And that's why religion is so complicated to some people. It's not about religion, it's about a relationship. And when you develop that relationship, just like you do with your man, or just like you do with your girl, just like you do with your kids, that is all that God wants for us and with us. And when I realized that it didn't have to do with a church. A church is to bring fellowship, community, and
Right.
all that. That's what you get at church, but it's also what you do behind closed doors. That's your relationship with
Are
God.
you
When
a
I go to
kind
bed, yeah, and
person?
there could be people that are not even Christians. You have the fruits of the spirit. Like I even had to tell some people, it's like there are Christians who are mean. There are Christians who lie. There are Christians who are
Yeah.
jealous. There are Christians who do all this. But there's also non-Christians who have the traits of Jesus. You are kind, you're patient, you're loving, you're meek, like you have meekness, all these things. And so it's like, who am I to judge just because you are not a religious person, but at least you have a relationship with God. And
Right.
so for listeners, that's usually something that I'm like, oh, like I wish you just felt the love of God to understand that this is more of a relationship thing, not a religion. And so you don't get turned off by me being like, oh yeah, surrender and trust the process. But really that's what it is know that your plans have already been ordered. Like you could just
And
cool it.
it's gonna come. If I would have been where I am today 4 years ago, I would have screwed it up.
Yeah,
I would have absolutely screwed up. There's no way I
absolutely.
could have handled the production that I'm doing right now with Will Packer and iHeart 4 years ago. Even 2 years ago, I would not have been able. I had to
No.
go through the no for sure breakup, the no for sure production. I had to go through some clients, like you said, that I just wasn't going to work out. Boundaries being set. Like my boundaries are so strict with most of my productions now that people are like, what? Email me. You know, I didn't know that back then. And he has already ordained our steps and our future. And it's for a reason. I was begging for a $300,000 production 4 years ago, but baby, I would have blown it.
Yeah,
That money, I would have blown it. I would not have been able to produce what I'm producing today. So just know that wherever you are, you have to believe. You don't have to believe us. This is my relationship. And I'm not telling you to go to church. Just be sincere and don't test and just say, hey, here I am.
Mm-hmm.
I want to feel you. I want to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
Just, put on some music, write, and just take your time day by day. And you might not walk around talking about, I'm a Bible thumper and it's the Christian. No, just be a kind, good person, and you're going to see things shift in your life. When you feel like doing something nasty to someone because they were nasty to you back, as hard as it is, pump the brakes. Don't do it. Don't do it. And you'll see. Every time I've done it in the past couple of years, and my friends will be like, I don't know how you're not reacting. This huge blessing comes right afterwards. Yeah. Huge blessing. And I don't even know what it's going to be or how it's going to happen, but I'm like, I lost. I think I've talked about, I lost like 3 or 4 clients from No For Sure ending to Holding Court season 2 ending to another one of my clients saying, I'm going to take a pause. And I was like, that was like 15 grand, about $15,000 a month, just gone. And I was like, okay, all right, let me figure this out. And then all of a sudden I just sat back and I just continued creating content. I focused on who I did have and the people that were in front of me. And I'm like, we're going to make it work. My team, I said, just hold tight. Please trust me, hold tight. I don't know what's coming, but something's coming. And we ended up closing 3 more clients immediately. And that were like triple the amount. And they're like, how does this happen? You just have to have faith. Yeah. We just have to have faith and be good people.
And that's why with the health stuff that you talk about, that's where I am. I'm like, listen, I don't have the final answer. I'm still doing a bunch of tests. It still feels very scary. Some of them I don't even want to do right now because I'm like,
you did say you were waiting, and I was like, what are you doing?
I was like, I don't want to do this test because if I don't like the answer, it's going to set me back from this trip. So when I go back home, I promise I will do it. But it's one of those things that I'm just, if I do have to pivot and I can't do in-person content days anymore, then I'm like, okay, God, you have something better for me. That's why I like these speaking engagements, like being able to go into schools, podcasting. I'm like, this may look like the next reiteration, and it's okay to continue to reinvent yourself. Right. I always talk about that, like even using cross-functional, like what do you call that? Like transferable skills. Like I went to school for social work. A lot of people don't know that. I went to school for social work from 2020 to 2022. I got a grant. And I always say, I'm like, my plan wasn't to become a social worker. I've always wanted to work with incarcerated youth. I've always wanted to work in the mentorship, entrepreneurship space. I wanted to work with young girls, but the pay in social work isn't the greatest. But I have those qualities that I use when I'm with my clients. So even when I'm like, listen, God, if content creation and social media strategy isn't where it ends, like maybe here's where it ends and there's more, I trust that whatever you have for me is going to be for your glory, for the purpose that you have for me on this earth, because really and truly, I'm not here for me. So I think it's okay to reinvent yourself. I think it's okay to pivot, and it's fine when things end. Like I think I've had a lot of closure with things ending lately and being like, okay, which with an ending, there's a beginning. And sometimes it's not even about the title of it ending. No. It's just like it's a pause, it's a hold.
One door closes, another one opens.
And those things are okay. So I mean, I'm waiting for the doors to open and doors to close. I think there's huge blessings, but sometimes we feel like it's not happening on our time. And like you said, sometimes we pray about things that we can't even handle, and God's like, listen, can you just wait and trust the process and rest and be still? And we can't do that as humans because we love that instant gratification.
I'm going to pray for you and your health. Thank and you. Hopefully what God has in store for you is complete healing. Whatever came back abnormal, it's like, just kidding, the lab tech was like a crackhead. I've been seeing some of the shows, like they were like doing meth while they're in the lab, so maybe that could be it, right? I was just watching a whole thing about it. But also on a serious note, sometimes we're like, well, we've seen people get healed when they were supposed to die, and we've also seen people just get sicker and things just going downhill, and we don't understand why God didn't heal them. Mm-hmm. So regardless of what happens with you, which again, I'm praying that you're so young and that you're going to be 100% healthy, and God is going to completely touch you and heal you and have you be a testimony for so many other people. If it does not turn that way, I don't want you to be like, it didn't happen. There's
My
a reason for
mentality
it.
is that God is using it all for his good. So if I just came here today to talk about this for somebody else to go get a blood work exam done because they haven't done blood work, go do your blood work and you'll find out. Like, if he just brought me on here to talk about that, then that's enough for me.
Right.
For me to speak to generations, to people and say, listen, get your sleep. Go get movement in. Find a friend. Do something that brings you joy. Even if it doesn't end up how I want it to, at least I got to share this testimony, and at least it can bless somebody else.
You can have been on a trip for 11 days, made $5 million, and you go back home and you have a test that is not the greatest and there's no cure for it. That 5 million can't do anything for you. You can have 5 billion. It won't do anything for you.
Well, one of my mentors, like online mentors, Boss Lee. I don't know if you've heard of Boss Lee. She was fighting stage 4 colon cancer.
Wow.
And she has so, like, rest in peace. And she was like praying, so many prayer warriors. She went over to Germany, was doing a bunch of like, like intro, like different testing and different natural ways of healing cancer. And she actually got until November to live. Wow. And it was past November. Nice. And then unfortunately, tragically, she passed away, but with so much peace. And it reminds me that she helped and
very
served
skinny.
so many people.
She ended up showing herself very skinny. Black girl?
No, she's white.
Just kidding.
That's okay. but no, she touched so many people.
I can't even imagine. And being vocal about it. And like you said, you're so young. And I think some people pass by like, I'm not 40, 50 yet. I don't have to check my health. Please check your health. Our foods are different. Our stress level is different. Social media is a whole different monster on our mental health, on our body, on our stress. We don't even realize what's going on inside of us when we're scrolling through our phones. So get checked and know that there's no amount of money that will bring you back from when it's too far gone.
And also your illness or your result, your illness and your test result isn't the final say. That's not your label. Mm-hmm. That's not your talent. I talk about that in my podcast, being one of one. We're getting rid of the labels and the attachments that we place on things. Just because you have had a terminal illness or maybe you have a title to your diagnosis, that isn't who you are. And so I want to live from that space of all these women that say like, oh, I have PCOS. No, like I am Sofia and PCOS is something I am living with because and my therapist said this, it is external. You're living with it. It's like this coaster is right here beside me, but it isn't in me. I am not the coaster. And I think that gave me a lot of peace of being like, whatever I may be going through and whatever my friends say, I'm like, don't attach that to yourself. That isn't your identity. Your diagnosis and your health struggle or even your mental illness isn't your identity. You're living with it. You can take it off.
That's why I say, I can't take my ADHD off. It doesn't come off. It's just stuck in there. But at the same time, I look at it as my superpower. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, this is a diagnosis. Yeah. This is something that and I still struggle with.
You understand it.
And now it's just, how do I live
with it
today? We're living with it. We're not going to use it as a crutch to continue moving. But we have been here for a while. We're going to go to the house and we have a drink. I'm so happy you came. Thank you so much. We're not even going to read a letter because this was the letter.
What is the letter?
We usually got a listener letter. But I feel like you spoke to whoever's listening right now, whether it's like use that health insurance you got, use that PTO to do what you need to do, go to that doctor's office, look within yourself,
do what makes you happy,
create that relationship with Jesus if that's something that you want to look for. And also, if you're unhappy where you are in life right now, monetary, financially, relationships, look within yourself. And it's like, where am I? What am I doing wrong? What can I improve on? And how can I the last episode was with Denise from Partake Cookies. And she was talking about in 2016, selling cookies out of her trunk, and, going house to house and meeting and just LinkedIn and finding people and getting in Whole Foods. And now she's in Walmart and in Target and all these places. And we're all looking at her like, how do you even get in Walmart? Mm-hmm. Like, how do you do that? Finding people on LinkedIn. Googling, like simple Googles will get you there. Every Monday she would go on and listen to this episode. Every Monday she would go on and do pitch competitions and look for pitch competitions and grants. Every Monday she was like her grant Monday, finding grants and finding funding. So where there's a will, there's a way. So we close every episode with a Bible verse, and I'm just going to choose something that I might have like highlighted from church recently. John 20:31. It says, "But these are written so that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God. Then by believing you may have life through his name." And literally, I think that I must have highlighted this at church or something last Sunday. I don't know why it stuck out to me, but everything is already written for us, and you need to believe you're going to have life, whether your life ends early or ends when you're 120, whether your business thrives or whether your business ends, your relationship keeps going and you get married and you grow old together, or it ends because it's served its purpose. You're gonna have life through his name and his name only. Don't take that glory. The second that you start feeling yourself thinking that it's your
You
name
better
and
humble
it's your
yourself.
little brand photo shoot that you did and it's your little website that you did or your little Instagram got 100K followers, it's gonna fail. Know that it's through his name, and you just have to make sure you glorify him with everything that you do. And that just looks like being intentional, being consistent, and thanking him every single day. So let everyone
good.
know where they can find you. And let's wrap it up and get out of here so we can, do this again next week.
Yep. So again, like I said, my name's Sofia Aguilar, Sofia with an F. And my website, you can find me on my website, sofiaaguilar.ca. My Instagram is at saguilar_. Find me on LinkedIn, Sofia Aguilar. But just connect with me, reach out to me. My emails are always open. My DMs are always open. I may be slow now, but I'm always showcasing everything that's going on. And I do have a podcast called One of One Podcast, so feel free to check it out. But thank you so much for having me. Thank you for creating a space for people to have the voices and to have that vulnerability and just and things being safe, and also to make wherever people are watching, whether you're at home, wherever you're watching this from, feel safe for them as well. So
thank you. And I think my record is still 100% at making people cry on the podcast.
That's crazy.
And I do a really good job, and I don't even do it on purpose, right, Viv? Every time they start crying. But it's great. This is God's here. Alrighty, I'll see you guys next week. Don't forget, if you're looking to start your podcast, idealaunchpodcast.com. Rate and review the pod right now on Apple Podcasts. Go ahead and hit that 5 stars, nothing less. If you made it here, I know you're giving it 5 stars. Write a review, and I'll shout you out next week. See you later. Bye.